Welcome, it's Abhiyan Mishra, just another quantum computing enthusiast from Quiftex. In this video, we will be moving further with a discussion about qubits and quantum computing, talking about multi-qubit systems. So before actually coming to the topic of multi-qubit system, there is another small topic which I would like to mention and talk about, which is bracket notation. We already familiar with this notation of a given qubit. We have talked about in the articles and videos. I called it matrix notation. Well, this is also known as ket notation, and for every ket notation there is an associated bra notation, together known as bracket notation. Well, any other the ket, you can say the bra of any ket is nothing but a Hermitian conjugate of that given qubit. Well, what is Hermitian conjugate? When in layman's term, and Hermitian conjugate is nothing but transpose of the matrix associated with this vector and each value, you can say the complex conjugate of each value. So this can be easily seen here that if the ket notation of 0 is 1 0, then bra notation is nothing but the transpose, which is 1 0 again, because these are real values. So the complex conjugate will be nothing but the same values. To be more clear about this concept, let us take an example of a complex number. Let us say alpha and beta, which belongs to complex space. Then the complex conjugate will be, you can say, alpha star, which denotes the complex conjugate of alpha, and beta star, which represents the complex conjugate of beta, and the transpose of the given matrix. There's another interesting operation associated with bracket notation, which is this. This particular notation is nothing but dot product of this bra and this ket. So when we represent the given vector, you can say in matrix or notation, then this means nothing but matrix multiplication. You will see that when these two bra and ket are equal, then this dot product will be equal to 1. This is true for both complex numbers and real numbers. So this can be easily summed up by this, you can say, expression, that for any phi and ket, if phi was in bra form and this was in ket form, omega would be equal to 1 if phi was equal to omega, and 0 otherwise, because they would be orthogonal to each other, and we know cos 90 is nothing but 0. So yeah, now moving further and actually talking about the topic, which is multi-qubit system. So up till now we have been discussing about single qubits, which we know that have two possible endpoints, 0 and 1. So the number of endpoints that a given system has can be easily represented as 2 to the power n, where n represents the number of qubits. When number of qubits were 1, we had two possible endpoints. We will be 2, we will have 4, and so on. So let us say, for simplicity purpose, we take only 2 qubits, a 2-qubit system. A 2-qubit system can have 4 possible endpoints. You can say 0 0 0 1 1 0 and 1 1. And like single qubit, they are matrices associated with 2 qubits as well, where the value or each value is nothing but the probability of finding the given state. So this is, you can say, this is nothing but alpha 0 0, the square of which is nothing but probability of finding 0 0. The same goes for all these, where this is nothing but alpha 0 1, and this is nothing but alpha 1 0, this is nothing but alpha 1 1. So to be more clear with this, now the question is, how do we obtain this given for 4 by 1 matrix? We already know that the dimension of a single the dimension of a matrix associated with a single qubit is 2 by 1. So it's quite intuitive and quite clear that if you were to represent now 2 qubits, then this would become twice of this, which would be nothing but 4 into 1 matrix. Now how do we obtain this matrix? Well, it's quite simple. There's another operation known as tensor product. The tensor product of two numbers, we will be easily able to understand what tensor product is, how we apply it through this simple example. So here we have a simple state 0 1, so which 0 1 is nothing but the tensor product of 0 and 1, which is the tensor product of the matrix associated with it, you can say. So we already know that 1 0 is associated with 0 and 0 1 is associated with 1. So now that we actually see how tensor product works in principle. Tensor product is nothing but a multiplication of this each coefficient with the whole matrix. The coefficient of first matrix with the whole matrix. So this 1 0 will be multiplied, 1 will multiply by 0 1, and this 0 will be multiplied by 0 and 1. So we get 1 0 1 0 0 1, which is nothing but when we perform normal multiplication, which is 1 into 0, which is 0, which is 1 into 1, which is 1, 0 into 0 is 0, and 0 into 1 is 0. We obtain this matrix, which means on the previous slide is nothing but matrix associated with this state, and this is nothing but alpha 1 0 1. Now to give you more idea or give you a better idea, let us talk about a general state. Let us say we have two qubits, omega 1 and omega 2. such that omega 1 is represented as a10 and b1 1, and omega 2 is represented as a20 and b2 1. So if we were to perform tensor product of these two numbers, this would be nothing but omega 1 omega 2. We would just we perform the same kind of operation which we performed previously, which is nothing but a1 by the tensor product of the matrix associated with these vector you can say qubits, a1 b1 tensor product a2 b2, which is nothing but a1 a2 b2 and b1 a2 b2, and we obtain these coefficients, we can say these values, which the square of which is nothing but a probability of finding 0 0 0 1 and so on. Of course, we can denote a given 2 qubit system in the form of a normal vector. For example, if we had an omega, the previous omega, we could easily represent it as alpha 0 0 0 0, alpha 1 0 1 0, and so on. And the normal rule of this that the sum of the probability of each coefficient of a given vector notation was equal to 1 in single qubit. The same holds for a multi-qubit system. For example, if I try to solve, if I can prove this for this given qubit of this system omega 1 omega 2, you can easily see the proof here is nothing too complex, which means the sum of the square of the probability that the true particular rule is true for multi-qubit system as well. Now moving on the discussion further, we have already applied Hadamard gate on a single qubit. We already know that it performs the operation of shifting the given state of a qubit into a superposition. For 0 it was plus, which was nothing but 1 by under root 2. 0 plus 1, for 1 it was minus, which is a special form of representing nothing but 1 by under root 2, 0 minus 1. So we already know the matrix associated with a single qubit Hadamard gate, this where this could be also rewritten as 1 by under root 2. Now what if we were to apply Hadamard gate on a multiple qubits? For example, this was a circuit, this was an Hadamard, and this was an Hadamard. Well, they could be and we were asked to give you the result of this. We were to result this this given circuit. If we already know q0, we have to say q1. Well, there were two methods of doing that. The first would be quite simple. We apply Hadamard gate on this single qubit, we apply Hadamard gate on this qubit, we obtain some value, let us say omega phi 1 and phi 2, and then we just tensor product them. Well, a second method and a quite common and simple method is we obtain a special matrix with for these two Hadamards by performing tensor product on these two qubits. So that's what we are going to discuss in this video. So moving a discussion further, for 2 qubits we can obtain an 2 qubit Hadamard, which is nothing but h to the power tensor 2, which is nothing but Hadamard tensor product Hadamard. Which is nothing, we first multiply the coefficients, which was 1 under root 2 and under root 2 for single cubic counterparts, we obtain 1 by 2, and then we perform some normal tensor product. This is nothing but each coefficient of a Hadamard 1 1 1 minus 1, and multiply it with by the whole Hadamard, you can say whole Hadamard matrix, which is 1 1 1 minus 1. So you can say that it was nothing but multiplication of each coefficient with the whole Hadamard itself. We obtain this matrix, which is nothing but Hadamard to the power tensor 2. So if we were to multiply any matrix, any 4 by 1 matrix which denotes the state of a given 2 qubit system, then we were to obtain the result directly instead of performing product in the end. This works out. Then we also see that we already know that when we apply can say the same rule goes for a Hadamard 3 when we have a 3 qubit Hadamard. When we want to apply an Hadamard gate on 3 qubits, we can easily obtain the 3 qubit counterpart, you can say counterpart of a Hadamard, by multiplying an Hadamard power to the power 2 tensor with an Hadamard gate again to obtain this matrix, which will of course have a dimension of, we already know that for a single qubit the Hadamard gate has a dimension 2, so for 2 qubit it will have dimension 4, and for 3 it will have 8, and so on. So this is the Hadamard matrix if we were to apply Hadamard gate on 3 qubits. And now we have already seen how when we apply Hadamard gate on a single qubit we obtain a superposition, but as we already know that in a 2 qubit system there are 4 possible states. So the Hadamard gate on a 2 system qubit will be nothing but a superposition over all possible 2 qubit endpoints. This is quite intuitive. So this is true for 2 qubit system. So for n qubit system, it is quite simple to understand that it would be nothing but a superposition over the all possible n endpoint. There you can say 2 to the power n endpoints of a given qubit system. For let us say this was a Hadamard for n qubit system, and this was n qubit, then that it would be nothing but 1 by root under 2 to the power n super, you can summation, you can say sum of superposition of all possible endpoints. Now moving a discussion further and actually talking about some 2 qubit gates. The first and the most simple gate is swap gate. We already know swap gate in classical computation. It is nothing but it swaps the position of the bits. For example, if it was 0 1 previously, a swap gate would make it 1 0, and if it was 1 0 previously, it would make it 0 1 after the swap gate is applied. So to really understand how a swap gate works, it's quite simple, and we'll use tensor product to understand it. So for example, let us say we had a omega bit from the previous example and omega 2 again. We already know that omega 1 into omega 2 is a1 b1 and so on. So if we were to swap, you can say swap the position of these 2 qubits, and say we obtained omega 2 omega 1, which is nothing but omega 2 omega 1, and so vice versa for this. So we will see then in this notation, there's only one change, which is the position of the second coefficient moved to third, and the third moved to second. You will see here, as you see down here. So there's only one change in the position, which is the coefficient, which is these 2 coefficients, second and third. So if we were to obtain you can say a gate, to make a matrix for a given gate, that particular matrix, this job should be to swap the values of the second and the third for a 2 qubit system. So that and this particular thing can be easily achieved by the help of this matrix, where this is nothing but an identity matrix, where we have swapped second and the third row, because that's the coefficient which we want to swap. So when we apply this given when we multiply this matrix with, let us say, any 2 qubit system, we see that these two values are swapped, which is the basic functionality of a swap gate. This is how a swap gate looks like in a quantum circuit. Now moving further, we will talk about another class of gates known as control gates. The control gates, basically, if we have 2 qubit, let us say q0 and q1, then in a control gate scenario, a single qubit acts as a control gate. You can say a control qubit, whose value will decide whether we apply a particular operation, or you can say a unitary, on the second qubit. So a easy method of understanding or the intuition behind the matrices associated with all the control gates, or learning those matrices, is, for example, if we had a u which was a unitary or an operation which could be explained by this matrix A B C D, then if we were to make a control version of this u, then it would be nothing but this 4 by 4 matrix, in which I have divided this 4 by 4 matrix into 4 equal parts, in which the first part will be nothing but identity, and then we obtain 0, then it is another 0, and then the unitary itself. This particular rule or reference will be true for all the control gates, as we will see further. So the first control gate is C0 gate, or you can say controlled X gate. The rule which we just saw in the previous slide, that this should be identity, this is nothing but 0, this will be 0, and then the unitary itself, which itself here is X. So this is how a control gate looks like in a quantum circuit, where let us say, well, this is the control bit and this is the target bit. If when the q0 becomes 1, we apply an X, you can say X rotation on this q1, making it, you can say, negation of q1 in classical terms. To understand the functioning of a control gate, this is, we know that for a 2 qubit system there are only 4 possible states: 0 0 0 1 1 0 and 1 1. Where the first qubit is the control bit, and the second one is a target bit. And then whenever this becomes 1, we apply a NOT, you can say, or X rotation on the second qubit. So here it is 0, so no rotation. Here it is 0 again, so no rotation. Here it is 1, so we will perform X gate on the second qubit and we will obtain 1. It is again 1, so we will perform X gate on the second qubit and we will obtain 0. The same goes for Y and Z gate. It's the basic rule which we talked in the previous slide of how to frame the matrix of a control gate applies here. So this will be nothing but identity, this is 0, this is another 0, and this is the Y gate itself, poly Y gate, and this is same, this is identity, this is 0, and this is a Z gate. You can also obtain a control version of the R5 gate, which you just replace this with e to the power phi I. Moving further, this is how you will see all these control version of these gates in a quantum circuit. This here, this will act as a control for this qubit. This is just a Y operation, and so on. So another class of gate is Toffoli gate. A Toffoli gate is nothing but a controlled version of control NOT gate. You can say CC NOT gate, control NOT gate, which means nothing but there would be, in this case, there would be two control gates. You can say two control qubits and a single target bit. Whenever both these value becomes 1, we apply an X gate. X gate on this third qubit. And the matrix associated with this follows the same principle which we talked in one of the previous slides, because here the whole matrix, or you can say the target matrix is a 4x4 matrix. So this whole will be I guess 8x8 matrix, and this is a CC naught. We already know this is a CC naught matrix. This is again identity, this is again 0, this is again 0, and this is a CC naught. And moving a second further, then the last gate we will be talking about is the Fredkin gate. A Fredkin gate is nothing but a controlled version of the swap gate. And so the same rules apply here. Here where this is nothing but identity, this is nothing but 0, this is again 0, this is a swap gate matrix. And this is what a Fredkin gates look like in a quantum circuit, where this is a controlled qubit, and these are the qubits which will be swapped whenever this q0 becomes 1. So these are all the basic multi-qubit gates which will be encountered in quantum circuits. The intuition and the working of these gates will become much more logical or much more intuitive when we apply them on various quantum algorithms. And by the way, all these gates are reversible and play an important role in reversible computation. Now, to actually show you how they look in a quantum circuit, what I'm using here is Quark. We have already talked about Quark in a previous video. So first we'll apply a control gate. This is control, which means this bit will act as a control bit. Then I can apply any bit, any gate, you can say any gate. If I apply Hadamard here, whenever this is 1, the Hadamard gate is applied on this given qubit, and this could be an X, which just switch, you can say X performs a rotation of 180 degree along the X axis on this qubit whenever this is 1. And now how the Toffoli gate looks like. Toffoli gate will we already know that it has two control bits and then an X gate. So it needs to be both these values needs to be 1 to actually swap, or you perform an X rotation on this third qubit. And then we have Fredkin's gate, which is nothing but swap gate. So let me apply swap here and here. So whenever this is 1, we swap the values of these two given qubits. These are all the possible multi-qubit operations. I hope you understand the intuition behind them, and you'll have a better understanding of these things when we actually apply them in algorithms. That's it for this video. Thank you.